Hello everyone. Welcome back to UGC Net English class. The topic of the previous lecture was the biography of the famous Renaissance period writer John Milton. Today we are going to analyze the main points from the history of Indian English literature. Indian English literature. The definition, if we try to define the idea of Indian English literature, we can say Indian English literature may be defined as literature written originally in English by authors Indian by birth, ancestry, or nationality. But Indian English literature may also include translation works into English. That means works written in Indian languages but later translated into English language. Indian English literature is frequently referred to as Indo-Anglian literature. History of English language and literature in India starts with the advent of East India Company in India. So East India Company was founded in 1600 during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. Subsequently came the establishment of trading ports in coastal cities such as Surat, Bombay, called Mumbai since 1995, Madras, called Chennai since 1996, and Calcutta, called Kolkata since 2001. So after the establishment or the founding of the East India Company in 1600, the trading ports were established in the coastal cities of Surat, Bombay, Madras, Calcutta, etc. The late 17th century saw the coming of printing press in India, but the publication were largely confined to either printing the Bible or government decrees. Though printing press came to India, they published only the Bible or some government documents. Then came newspapers. It was in 1779 that the first Indian newspaper named James Augustus Higgins, the Bengal Gazette, which was published in India. So the Bengal Gazette appeared in 1779 by James Augustus Higgins. English language public instruction began in India in the 1830s during the rule of the British East India Company. In 1835, English replaced Persian as the official language of the East India Company. Thomas Babington Macaulay, also called Lord Macaulay, played a major role in introducing English and Western concepts into educational institutions in India. In 1835, Macaulay delivered his Minute on Indian Education, which sought to establish the need for Indian natives to receive an English education. So in 1835, Macaulay Minute helped to establish English education in the Indian education system. Throughout the 1840s and 1850s, primary, middle and high schools were opened in many districts of British India, with most high schools offering English language instruction in some subjects. So after the Minute of Education, 1835, in the 1840s and 50s, So many schools started giving instruction in English. The cause of English education found its ablest Indian champion in Rajaram Mohan Roy. Rajaram Mohan Roy was a very good supporter of English education. So, in his persuasive letter on English education addressed to the Governor General Lord Amherst in 1823, Rajaram Mohan Roy argued most forcefully against the establishment of a Sanskrit school in a preference to one imparting English education. So he favored English education rather than educating the children of India in Sanskrit language. St. George's Anglo-Indian Higher Secondary School was founded in 1715 as the military, later Madras, male orphan asylum and is one of the oldest schools in the world and the oldest in India. So the oldest English medium school in India was St. George's Anglo-Indian Higher Secondary School, established in Madras. The first universities were established in India in 1857 in Bombay, Calcutta and Madras. After Indian independence in 1947, Hindi was declared the first official language, and attempts were made to declare Hindi the sole national language of India. Due to protests from Tamil Nadu and other non-Hindi speaking states, it was decided to temporarily retain English for official purposes until at least 1965. In 1963, the Official Language Act was passed, which enabled English to continue as an official language. So these are the main points from the history of English in India. Now we will move to the literature side, the history of Indian English literature. The first book written by an Indian in English was The Travels of Deen Muhammad, a travel narrative by Sheikh Deen Muhammad, published in England in 1794. So this is the first book written by an Indian. The Travels of Deen Muhammad, written by Sheikh Deen Muhammad. Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay wrote Rajmohan's Wife and published it in 1864. It is the first Indian novel written in English. So remember, Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay's work Rajmohan's Wife is considered the first Indian English novel. Bianca, or the Young Spanish Maiden, published in 1878, written by Toru Dutt, was the first novel written by an Indian woman. So the first novel written by an Indian woman was Toru Dutt's Bianca, or the Young Spanish Maiden. The first Indian poet to write in English was Henry Louis Vivian Thoreau. So the first Indian English poet was Henry Louis Vivian Thoreau. Now let's see which was the first book of poetry translated into English language from an Indian language. We know that the first Indian English poet is Henry Louis Vivian Rouge. But the first poetry collection translated into English was by Kavalli Venkata Ramaswamy, whose poem titled Vishwaguna Darshana of Arasanipala Venkata Dwarun, which was an early 17th century Sanskrit poem. And this work was the earliest translated book of verse in English by an Indian writer. So the first poetry collection translated into English was Kavalli Venkata Ramaswamy's poem Vishwaguna Darshana. Now, taking the case of Indian English drama. Indian English drama dates from 1831, when Krishna Mohan Banerjee wrote the drama titled The Persecuted, which is also called Dramatic Scenes Illustrative, which is the first Indian English drama written by Krishna Mohan Banerjee, The Persecuted, or Dramatic Scenes Illustrative. The earliest fictional work was written by Kailash Chundar Dutt. His work, A Journal of 48 Hours of the year 1945. The fictional work, first fictional work, is Kailash Chundar Dutt's work, A Journal of 48 Hours of the year 1945. Now let's see which was the first autobiography. Kripa Bhai Satyanathan's work, Suguna, is the first autobiographical novel in English by an Indian woman. It was published as a book in 1895. Kripa Bhai Satyanathan's Suguna is the first autobiographical novel in English written by an Indian woman. Now the trio of Indian English novel, Mulkraj Anand, R.K. Narayan and Raja Rao, during the 1930s. So they are called the trio of Indian English novels, Mulkraj Anand, R.K. Narayan and Raja Rao. The trio of modern Indian English poetry are Nisim Ezekiel, Jayanta Mahapatra and A.K. Ramanujan. The trio of modern Indian English poetry, Nisim Ezekiel, Jayanta Mahapatra and A.K. Ramanujan. And Nisim Ezekiel is called the father of post-independence and modern Indian English poetry. The father of post-independence English poetry and the father of modern Indian English poetry, Nisim Ezekiel. Rabindranath Tagore won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913 for his work Geetanjali, Song Offerings. Now let's see the writers who won the Booker Prize from India. We also include writers who have an Indian root, who have an Indian origin. So we have our V.S. Naipaul, who won the Booker Prize in 1971 for his work In a Free State. In a Free State, V.S. Naipaul won the Booker Prize 1971. And then Salman Rushdie won the Booker Prize for his work Midnight's Children in 1981. And after this, Arundhati Roy won the Booker Prize for her book The God of Small Things in 1997. Then Kiran Desai won the Booker Prize for her work The Inheritance of Laws in 2006. Then Aravind Adiga won the Booker Prize for his work The White Tiger in 2008. So we were talking about the Man Booker Prize, the Booker Prize for fiction. There is another prize, that is International Booker Prize. So International Booker Prize is given to an author for the work written in an international language, then translated into English. So a native language work which is translated into English is considered for International Booker Prize. But the Man Booker Prize is awarded to a book or novel originally written in English. And our International Booker Prize winner is Geetanjali Sri. Geetanjali Sri became the first Hindi author to win the International Booker Prize for her novel Ret Samadhi, translated into English as Tomb of Sand. Tomb of Sand. The novel tells the story of an elderly woman who falls into a depression after the death of her husband. So, Geetanjali Sri won the International Booker Prize in 2022 for her novel Ret Samadhi or Tomb of Sand. The first Indian English novelist to win the Kendra Sahitya Akademi was R.K. Narayan for his work The Guide, 1960. So R.K. Narayan was the first winner of the Kendra Sahitya Akademi and also the first novelist to win the Kendra Sahitya Akademi Award, 1960. The first Indian English poet to win the Kendra Sahitya Akademi Award was Jayanta Mahapatra for his collection titled Relationship. The poetry collection titled Relationship. And the first Indian English dramatist to win the Kendra Sahitya Akademi Award was Mahesh Dattani for his work Final Solutions and Other Plays, 1998. So the first Indian English dramatist to win the Kendra Sahitya Akademi Award was Mahesh Dattani. Besides these famous writers we have already mentioned, there are so many prominent writers who have written promising works in Indian English language. Novelists, playwrights, essays, short story writers, poets, etc. So we will discuss them in the coming lectures. So that's all for today. In the next class, we will have our topic, one of Geoffrey Chaucer's poems, The House of Fame.